He looked into his son's eyes, cold, steady, almost hollow, and said the words no one would ever forget. I had to do it. She was going to ruin everything. He spoke with a chilling calmness, as if the act he'd just committed, brutal, irreversible, was somehow necessary. As if it were not just a crime but a solution. A tragic answer to a question no one dared ask aloud. But what he didn't say, what he kept buried in silence, was the part that made this betrayal so deeply unforgivable. He had been sleeping with his son's wife. And now, someone was dead. Not a stranger. Not a rival. But blood. His own son. Dead in a pool of blood in the family garage, just steps from where his daughters slept. The children he would never hold again. The wife he trusted. The father he revered. Gone. And it didn't happen in some distant war zone, or the shadowy corners of organized crime. No. This story unfolded in a quiet, suburban neighborhood in Plainfield, Illinois. A place where people left their doors unlocked. Where Sunday church bells rang peacefully in the air. Where kids rode bikes and neighbors waved hello. But beneath that calm surface, something dark was festering. What could possibly drive a father to betray his own bloodline? What would make a woman turn against the man who provided for her, who built a life with her, who fathered her children? What could push two people to commit a sin so deep that it ends in murder? This isn't just a tale of infidelity. This isn't just a story of lust. It's a psychological descent, a collapse of conscience, into obsession, betrayal, and death. This is not just a crime. It's a twisted love triangle, a web of lies and manipulation, and a fatal crossing of boundaries that tore an entire family apart. Welcome to True Crime Cinema. Today we unravel one of the most disturbing domestic betrayals in recent memory. The story of 34-year-old Ethan Rourke, a man whose life was taken not by a stranger, but by the two people he should have been safest with, his wife and his own father. A story that sent shockwaves through a quiet Midwestern town and left an entire nation asking the same question. What? Ethan Rourke was a man you might pass on the street and never think twice about. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't loud. But ask anyone who knew him, and you'd hear the same words over and over again. Loyal. Soft-spoken. Solid. The kind of man who showed up. For work. For his kids. For his marriage. He lived in Plainfield, Illinois, a peaceful suburb tucked between rolling farmlands and commuter highways. Ethan had recently accepted a promotion at a local logistics firm. He was proud of that. Not because of the paycheck, but because it meant he could give his daughters a better life. His wife, Madison, was 32. A stay-at-home mom. Attractive. Smart. But, according to friends, she was often restless. Behind her warm smile and Instagram-perfect family photos, there was something flickering. A dissatisfaction. A hunger for more. She confided in friends that she sometimes felt invisible. That Ethan was a good man, but maybe too good. Predictable. Boring. But instead of counseling, instead of confronting the growing distance, she turned elsewhere. To someone Ethan would never suspect. Her father-in-law. Dennis Rourke was 59. A decorated, now retired fire captain. A man who had once pulled children from burning buildings. A man who raised Ethan as a single father after Ethan's mother died when he was just 12. Dennis had been something of a hero in town. But behind that reputation, there was a different side. A controlling side. A man used to being in charge. Used to admiration. So when Madison began to lean on him, emotionally at first, he welcomed it. She would ask for advice. Help with the kids. Help with the house when Ethan worked long hours. It started innocently enough. Or at least, that's what everyone told themselves. But soon, those late-night talks turned into long car rides. Those innocent laughs turned into longing glances. And before long, they were having an affair. Not just secret rendezvous, but a full-blown emotional and physical relationship, behind Ethan's back. Madison would later claim that it just happened. That Dennis was the only one who listened. But was it really an accident? Or was it manipulation all along? They used burner phones to text. Met in parking lots. Deleted call histories. But no secret stays buried forever. Because one night Ethan came home early. And what he saw shattered him. It wasn't just a message or a rumor. It was confirmation. He confronted Madison. Then Dennis. Witnesses reported hearing yelling from inside the Rourke household. How could you do this to me? Ethan reportedly shouted. You're my father. But Dennis was unfazed. Cool. Detached. He told Ethan to calm down. And Madison? She just cried. Ethan didn't tell the police. Didn't tell friends. Maybe he was embarrassed. Maybe he thought he could fix it. But what he didn't know was that they weren't done. The affair continued, secretly, carefully. And that's when the texts began to take on a darker tone. He's in the way. We'd be free if he wasn't around. I don't know how much longer I can take this. Was it a fantasy? Empty venting? Or was it a prelude to murder? On the night of July 8, 2023, something terrible happened. Ethan never made it inside the house after work. Instead, he was found dead in the garage. His skull crushed with a tire iron. Bludgeoned in a fit of rage, or perhaps cold calculation. Madison was the one who dialed 911. There's blood. He's not breathing. Please, send someone. But when the first responders arrived, her story didn't add up. There were no signs of forced entry. No valuables missing. No witnesses. Just Madison. And silence. But the silence wouldn't last long. Surveillance footage showed Dennis's truck circling the block. Phone records revealed contact minutes before the murder. And then, the text messages surfaced. Messages that painted a picture not of two grieving family members, but two lovers, two conspirators. You have to do it soon. I want to be with you. No more secrets. When confronted, Dennis offered little emotion. He claimed he hadn't seen Ethan that day. But then he slipped. She was going to ruin everything, he told police. I had to do it. A confession. But also, a revelation. He wasn't just trying to protect Madison. He was protecting himself. Because this was never just about lust. It was about control. About power. About a man who couldn't stand to lose what he thought he deserved. Love, admiration, and obedience. From his son. From his lover. He lost them both. And now one was dead. The other, behind bars. Ethan Rourke was buried 3 days later. His daughters, too young to understand, still ask when Daddy's coming home. The town of Plainfield hasn't recovered. How could it? When the enemy wasn't outside the home, but inside it. A father. A wife. A son. 3 lives entwined by blood and betrayal. This is not just a story of murder. This is a case study in how lies grow. How love curdles into obsession. And how crossing the wrong line can destroy everyone in its path. So we ask you, what do you think drove them? Was this a crime of passion? Or a calculated plan? Was Madison a victim or a manipulator? And was Dennis a broken man? Or a cold-blooded killer? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Because here, at True Crime Cinema, we don't just tell the stories, we unravel them. Ethan Rourke wasn't the kind of man who made headlines. He wasn't flashy. He didn't chase attention. He didn't stir drama. He was a man of quiet strength, the kind of person friends called dependable, modest, even gentle. Ask his neighbors in Plainfield, Illinois, and you'll hear a common theme in their voices. He was steady. He loved his family. You could count on Ethan. He lived a life that looked nearly perfect on the surface. A modest home on a quiet street. 2 beautiful young daughters. And a wife, Madison, who appeared to adore him. To the outside world, they were the picture of small-town America. The Rourkes attended church together every Sunday. They hosted backyard barbecues in the summer. They shared smiles and handshakes at school pickup. Ethan had just landed a new job in logistics at a distribution company across town. A step up, finally allowing him to support his family without the overtime shifts that had kept him away on weekends. He had plans for the future. A family vacation to the Smoky Mountains. A savings fund for the girls' college. Even talk of adding a puppy to the household. But behind that calm suburban exterior, something was quietly eroding. Something deep. Something dangerous. Because within the walls of that cozy home, trust was being broken in the most unimaginable way. Madison Rourke, 32, had once been a vibrant and social woman, full of warmth and laughter. But lately something had changed. She often looked distracted. Distant. Friends noticed she stopped showing up for community events. She pulled back from her usual circle. And when asked how things were going with Ethan, her answers were vague, strained. She once confessed to a close friend, "I feel invisible. Like I'm just playing a role, not living a life." She described her days as repetitive, filled with dirty dishes, diapers, and school drop-offs. She said she felt trapped in the life she had chosen. But instead of turning to her husband for support or seeking counseling, or even confiding in her mother or sister, she found comfort in someone else. Someone no one could have predicted. Her father-in-law, Dennis Rourke, a 59-year-old retired fire captain. A man once hailed as a local hero. A father figure who had raised Ethan single-handedly after his wife, Ethan's mother, passed away from cancer when Ethan was just 12. Dennis was respected, admired. He had spent over 3 decades saving lives and commanding respect. He was supposed to be a pillar of strength in the Rourke family. But behind closed doors, something twisted began to form between him and Madison. It started under innocent pretenses. Dennis would stop by to help with the girls while Ethan worked night shifts. He'd offer advice, pick up groceries, fix a leaky sink. He told Madison he wanted to be there more, that family mattered. At first it made sense. Who wouldn't appreciate a helpful father-in-law stepping in when life got overwhelming? But soon the visits became longer. The conversations more personal. Too personal. Dennis began complimenting Madison in subtle, loaded ways. He would call her wasted in that house, or say things like, "You're too smart and beautiful to just be someone's housewife." And Madison responded. She began confiding in Dennis. About her loneliness. About her frustrations. About her disconnection from Ethan. What might have been a cry for help was misinterpreted, or perhaps welcomed by Dennis. Because not long after those conversations began, the boundaries started to erode. Neighbors began noticing unusual things. Madison and Dennis spotted at a local coffee shop, alone, on a Tuesday morning. Dennis's truck parked outside the Rourke house well after midnight, when Ethan was known to be working. Witnesses even reported seeing the two of them driving together late at night, parked at the far edge of town near a nature preserve. One concerned neighbor said, "It didn't look like a father-in-law comforting his daughter-in-law. It looked like something else." And then came the text. As part of later court testimony, prosecutors would reveal chilling digital messages retrieved from Madison's phone. One in particular stood out. "I wish you were the man I married instead. He doesn't see me, but you do." It was clear. This wasn't just a momentary lapse. This wasn't a flirtation or a misunderstanding. This was a full-blown, dangerous affair. One fueled not just by lust, but by obsession. And Dennis? He wasn't just cheating on his son's wife. He was betraying his own legacy. His wife of 37 years, Margaret, began noticing strange changes. Dennis became distant. He stopped attending family events. He ghosted old friends. He even skipped his granddaughter's birthday party with no explanation. And most telling of all, he began spending more and more time at Ethan and Madison's house, especially when Ethan was at work. It wasn't long before Ethan started sensing something was off. He'd come home from a 12-hour shift to find Dennis leaving the house in the early morning, making awkward excuses. He'd notice Madison acting nervous whenever Dennis texted. And then in early June of 2023, the dam broke. Ethan allegedly found a message thread between his wife and his father, partially deleted but still damning. Suggestive language. Plans to see each other soon. Even a shared photo, too intimate to explain away. It was the moment every husband dreads. And worse, every son fears. Ethan confronted Madison. There was yelling, shouting, accusations. He demanded answers. According to one of Ethan's close friends, who later testified, Ethan was devastated. He couldn't wrap his mind around the betrayal. Not just the affair, but who it was with. Ethan reportedly told that friend, over beers at a local bar, "If I ever find out they've crossed the line, I'll never speak to either of them again." It wasn't just rage in his voice, it was heartbreak. He didn't immediately call the police. Didn't file for divorce. He wanted to process. To confront them. To somehow salvage the ruins of what once felt like a real life. But what Ethan didn't know was that the danger wasn't over. It was just beginning. Madison and Dennis continued communicating, covertly, using burner phones and encrypted apps. They knew Ethan suspected them. And instead of pulling away, they dug in deeper. Psychologists later described their relationship as toxic codependency. A dynamic where boundaries ceased to exist. Where each person became the other's justification for violating every moral code. Dennis, once a man of service, had become intoxicated with the fantasy of starting over, with his son's wife. And Madison wasn't resisting. She had begun telling Dennis that she couldn't breathe with Ethan around. That she was suffocating. That she wished they could be together, without anyone in the way. The messages grew darker. More urgent. "I can't keep doing this," she wrote in late June. "He's watching everything. I'm scared." Dennis's response? "I'll take care of it." Those 4 words would later become the cornerstone of the prosecution's argument. Because what happened next wasn't an accident. It wasn't spontaneous. It was methodical, planned, and it would end with Ethan Rourke lying dead in his own garage. Ethan had no idea he was running out of time. He thought confronting his wife was the worst of it. He believed, maybe foolishly, that his father would admit the mistake, apologize, that somehow the family could heal. But instead he was being watched, monitored, silently marked by the two people who should have protected him the most. He tried to go on with life. He showed up to work, took the kids for ice cream, smiled through clenched teeth. But something in him had changed. The storm was coming. He could feel it. In the weeks that followed, Ethan became more withdrawn. He began sleeping in the guest room. He started locking his phone. And he quietly made an appointment with a divorce attorney. But he never made it to that meeting. Because on July 8, 2023, Ethan was silenced. Permanently. What happened in that garage remains the subject of both forensic analysis and public horror. But one thing is clear. He never saw it coming. And when police pieced together the timeline, when they dug into the text records, when they reviewed the surveillance footage, they uncovered not just a murder plot, but the unraveling of a family ripped apart from the inside. All because one woman felt unseen, and one man couldn't let go of control. 2 weeks after Ethan Rourke confronted his wife and father about their affair, silence fell over the quiet street of Oak Bend Lane in Plainfield, Illinois. It was a Saturday night, humid still. The kind of summer night when nothing seems out of place. Until it was. At exactly 9:37 p.m. on July 8, 2023, a call came into the Will County 911 dispatch center. The voice on the line was frantic, gasping. "My husband's not breathing. There's blood, there's so much blood, please, someone help." The caller was Madison Rourke. Her tone trembled with panic. Her words choked with sobs. But trained dispatchers noticed something. She didn't ask what had happened. She didn't say someone broke in. She jumped straight to blood. And when first responders arrived at the Rourke home just 8 minutes later, what they found didn't match the hysteria on the phone. Ethan Rourke, 34, was lying face down in his garage. His skull had been crushed, shattered by blunt force trauma. Blood pooled beneath his head and smeared across the concrete floor in wide, chaotic strokes. But here's what stood out. There were no signs of forced entry. No broken lock. No shattered windows. No signs of a struggle elsewhere in the house. Nothing had been stolen. The only thing missing was a reason. But to detectives, the message was clear. This wasn't a robbery. This wasn't a random act. This was personal. And whoever did it came there to kill. Near Ethan's body, they found the weapon, a tire iron. Its bloodied edges still wet. Detectives noted it was worn, slightly rusted, and unmistakably old. A quick comparison to an old set of tools Ethan's father, Dennis Rourke, had been seen using in past family photos suggested a match. But that alone wasn't enough. Madison told detectives she had been inside with the children when she heard a loud bang from the garage. She claimed she ran out, saw her husband collapsed, and called 911. But inconsistencies emerged quickly. Her clothes had no blood on them. Her timing was vague. And her story kept changing. When questioned further, she said Ethan had gone to check on a water leak in the garage. But Ethan wasn't the kind of man to forget plumbing issues. And there were no signs of any leak. The first break in the case came from a neighbor across the street. Their doorbell camera, quietly recording that night, captured something chilling. At 8:56 p.m., a dark blue Ford F-150 truck was seen idling just yards from the Rourke driveway. The model matched Dennis Rourke's vehicle. It sat there for 7 full minutes before disappearing from view. At 9:05 p.m., just minutes before Madison's 911 call, the camera picked up a faint, metallic thud, followed by silence. When confronted with the footage, Dennis claimed he hadn't seen Ethan that day. He said he'd been home watching baseball. But his alibi had holes. His cell phone pinged near the Rourke home at 9:01 p.m. And a gas station receipt from earlier that evening showed he had filled up less than a mile from their address. That's when detectives dug deeper into their digital lives. And what they found rewrote the entire case. In Madison's phone records, investigators discovered a hidden messaging app. Encrypted, difficult to trace. But not impossible. The app, commonly used to disguise burner phone conversations, revealed a disturbing trail of messages between Madison and Dennis. The texts spanned months. Planning secret meetups. Expressing devotion. But more than that, they revealed premeditation. One message, dated June 29th, read, "He's in the way. If he wasn't here, we could finally be together." Another, from Dennis, Say the word. I'll handle it. Dennis later told authorities the message was taken out of context. He claimed he meant he'd talk to Ethan, not hurt him. But no one believed that. Especially not when detectives recovered a deleted text from Madison, sent 2 days before the murder. Promise me it won't be messy. I can't risk the girls seeing anything. Now the picture was coming into focus. Investigators believe Madison lured Ethan into the garage, under the guise of fixing a leak or checking something suspicious. She likely texted Dennis when Ethan was in position. Dennis entered the side garage door, quiet, rehearsed, and then struck. What's hard? Right to the back of the skull. The autopsy later confirmed the fatal blow caused immediate unconsciousness. But Dennis didn't stop there. He struck 5 more times, fracturing the skull, breaking vertebrae, rendering Ethan unrecognizable. The most haunting part? There were no signs of defensive wounds, meaning Ethan never even turned around. The trial began in early 2024. By now the story had gone national. The betrayal, the affair, the patricide. Every news outlet wanted a piece. True crime podcasts, courtroom sketch artists, viral theories. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was thick with disbelief. How could a father do this to his own flesh and blood? The prosecution wasted no time. They painted a portrait of madness, of a man consumed by obsession, driven by lust, blinded by rage, and a woman who orchestrated it all, behind a veil of victimhood, lust, betrayal, and a father-son rivalry that turned into bloodshed, the prosecutor told the jury. They described how Dennis had been grooming Madison, how Madison, in turn, manipulated Dennis into doing the unthinkable. Then came the bombshell. Madison had agreed to testify. In exchange for a plea deal, manslaughter instead of first-degree murder, she took the stand and pointed the finger at Dennis. Through tears, she told the court, "I never wanted Ethan dead. I just wanted out." Dennis took it too far. She claimed she was emotionally vulnerable, that she'd been drawn into something she didn't understand, that she had tried to stop him, but by the time she realized how far it had gone, it was too late. But jurors weren't convinced. They saw the messages. They heard the recordings. They knew Madison had called Ethan a roadblock more than once. One juror later told reporters, she knew what she was doing. And Dennis? He just did the dirty work. On March 12, 2024, the verdict was read. Dennis Rourke, guilty of first-degree murder. He showed no emotion, no tears, just a blank stare, as if he still didn't believe what he'd done. The sentence? Life in prison without parole. Madison, now a convicted felon, was sentenced to 18 years behind bars. She will be eligible for parole in 2035. But even after the sentencing, questions remained. Was Madison the mastermind all along? A manipulator who bent 2 men to her will? Some psychologists labeled her a covert narcissist. One expert noted her behavior showed signs of emotional grooming, playing the victim while subtly pushing others toward violence. Others argued Dennis was the true predator, harboring long-standing resentment toward Ethan's success, and seeing Madison as both a lover and a weapon. Some believe he never forgave Ethan for surpassing him in life, becoming the kind of husband and father Dennis never was. So when Madison appeared, young, vulnerable, craving attention, it wasn't just attraction. It was an excuse, an escape, a fantasy of rewriting his own past. In the end, maybe it wasn't just about Madison, or Ethan, or the lies. Maybe it was about power. And what happens when love is twisted into possession? When desire mutates into delusion? And when the people closest to you become the ones who destroy you? This case didn't just shake a small town in Illinois. It shattered the illusion that betrayal is only skin deep. Because when trust is broken by the ones you love most, there's no limit to how far the darkness can go. Stay alert, stay safe, and remember, some crimes aren't just tragic. They're cinematic. This is true crime cinema. This wasn't your average love triangle. This was something far darker, far more twisted. It was a slow psychological descent, one built on deceit, emotional manipulation, and a level of betrayal that borders on the unimaginable. A trusted father, a devoted wife, and a man, Ethan Rourke, caught in the crossfire of 2 people who should have protected him, not plotted against him. This wasn't just adultery. This was a conspiracy. A dangerous cocktail of obsession, delusion, and suppressed resentment that detonated into bloodshed. One moment of passion became a deadly secret. And that secret became a murder. Now a son is gone. A family, once picture perfect, is shattered beyond repair. Two young girls will grow up without their father. And the people responsible? The very ones who were supposed to love him most. All because two people couldn't, or wouldn't, walk away. And so, the question remains, was Madison a master manipulator, playing both men like pawns in a game she controlled from the shadows? Or was she simply in over her head? A desperate woman looking for connection in all the wrong places? And what about Dennis? Was this twisted act driven by love? Or was it something far more dangerous? A father's envy of his own son's life? A toxic brew of jealousy, regret, and emotional dependence? These are the questions that still haunt everyone who followed this case. And now we want to hear from you. What's your theory? Was Madison pulling the strings? Or was she just another victim of Dennis's obsession? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. We read every one. And if this story stunned you the way it did us, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and share this case with someone who thinks they've heard it all. Because here at True Crime Cinema, we don't just tell you the facts. We dive beneath the surface. We peel back the lies. And we expose the chilling truths that others are too afraid to touch. Because some stories, they don't just break your heart. They haunt you. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and never underestimate